So if you watched my previous video I came across a verse which I said I need to look deeply into, but instead of looking deeply into it, I've thought of more of like an overall kind of meaning that can be applied. So this is the one in Genesis chapter 19 verse 26, and it says, "But his wife looked back behind him and she became a pillar of salt." So what I was reflecting on is when we give our life to Jesus, when we give our lives to God, to Jesus, we are supposed to change our ways. So the idea is we move away from sin, but sometimes we may be we may be a little bit not like worried, but a little bit like unsure, or I can't think of the word. And sometimes we can be like, oh, it's okay, I'll just cut down on this. So say it's like alcohol, you could just be like, oh, well, just, get completely drunk. By the way, there's nothing wrong with alcohol. We're talking about getting literally plastered. But you could say, oh, it's okay if I get like plastered on Christmas or something like that. Like, you make excuses to sin, and that kind of thing is wrong. And if we go into here, because it's a reflect on the story, basically the angels tell Lot and his family to leave this country because God's gonna well, this city, should I say, God's gonna demolish it. And they're a bit adamant, but when it comes to his wife, she was a little bit more hesitant, as it says in this verse. And it's just the fact that it is a big sacrifice when you come to Jesus, but you have to be fully committed. And yes, there's times where you unfortunately will end up leaving family. Sometimes that's really horrible. Sometimes you end up leaving families, but there's people out there where you know you becoming a Christian is literally, their life is in danger because they're in a culture where there's things like honor killing, which is just, it's not bemusable, I can't think of the word, but it's insane to think about. Or sometimes even countries, people have to flee countries because they've turned to Christianity, and obviously in those circumstances it's really hard. And as well, sometimes you end up leaving friends. Like, God sometimes separates you from people that you used to hang around with, but the reason why he does this is because if you still hang around with these people, they can cause you to sin. They're not very good, they're not a good influence in your life, but at the same time God will introduce you to new friends that will influence your life in a good way. So those are sort of things that kind of happen, but you can't be halfway in, halfway out, because otherwise, if you're living that lifestyle, sin will, you'll end up being you'll end up falling in sin because you're still forever in that temptation. So when it says in here, but his wife looked back behind him and she became a pillar of salt. Obviously that verse can be taken as many different reasons, but you can get destroyed by sin. You need to fully commit. And I know it's hard. Like, I'm not saying like it's an easy walk in the park, because it really isn't, but it's a thing that you have to do. You can't live in a half-willed, half-out kind of mentality. You can't be what's that word, you can't be that neutral. You can't be that neutral. You have to be fully in it, or even fully out. I'd rather you not be fully out, I'd rather be fully in, but you can't live both lives, because in the end you'll end up falling. Another thing is, don't think about the past, just think about the future. Just keep looking forward. Don't look at the back of what you've kind of done in the past, because that can go over in your head. The best thing is to do is to just keep looking forward, keep looking towards Jesus, just keep going and just keep praying for strength.